And a very good evening to you, and welcome to today's edition of Politics 101. Of course, today is the Hinds Sight edition, and I would be giving my perspectives and so on the news of the day, the news of the last couple of days, and we are going to open up the lines a little bit later so that you can get in and give your views on the issues of the day. Welcome. Please share the link. Let people know that Politics 101 is on. Welcome to you wherever you are in Guyana or the wider Caribbean or wherever you may be in Europe, in North America. Lots of you are in the United States of America, in Canada. Welcome to Politics 101. The topic today is, why do they fear the word undermine? We want to start off with that because a lot has been happening in the last couple of days since the mysterious fire that burned down the Brickdam police station, and then the other little fires that were quickly put out. We are in the era of fires. A couple of months ago, we had a demonstration in Victoria on the east coast of Demerara. And as was the custom at the end of the demonstration, a few of us spoke to those assembled. And I, of course, spoke. And I called on the people to undermine the government of Guyana, because as I argued then, and I'm arguing now, the government has no intention of governing in an inclusive way. And when governments do not govern as they should, when they undermine the constitution of the country, when they undermine the institutions of the country, when they undermine the interests of those who did not vote for them, then it leaves itself open to counter undermining. And I made very clear that people are to stand up. And one way of standing up was to undermine the government. And I made that call within the context of what Walter Rodney called self-activity. That is, people engaging in their own individual acts of opposition to that which they're not in favor with. Often when we think about protest, we think about protest as the collective effort of people. And obviously, nothing is wrong with that. But there is also the silent protest, the protest that individuals take in their private and their personal capacity. And we often don't pay much attention to that. See what people do when they're up against a government like the one we have, is that you have to fight on all fronts. As I said in my column this past weekend, what to do, what to do, what to do. People must find creative ways to slow down and ultimately wreck the train of aggression by the government. See, sometimes we want to knock out the government with one blow. But there are often other ways. Sometimes we have to slow down the autocratic government. If you're not able to knock it out, you slow it down. And the way you slow down that aggression by the government is to undermine the government, do some small things. If you're a teacher, you're a nurse, you're a pensioner, you're a student, you're a government worker, you're a police, you're a soldier, you're an unemployed youth, there are ways in which you, in small groups or individually, can undermine a government. You know, Professor Rex Nettleford said when people are oppressed, they retreat to a place where the oppressor cannot see them. A place where the oppressor cannot hear or spy on them. People have done that all the time. That is why today, we in the Caribbean, we have all these artistic manifestations, whether they be our music, our poetry, our novels, our drama. They all come from a place deep where the oppressor could not find them. They were there during the 200 and odd years of slavery. They were there during the period of colonialism. They came out in the open after independence. So there are things that we can do. You wait until the oppressor turns his back and you remove the bridge that he uses to invade your space. Oppressors like to invade the space of the people, invade the space of our in Boston, kill them, murder him. So we have to wait until the oppressor turns his back. And that bridge that he uses to come to invade your space, remove it. You have to turn his yes into a no. Sharp knife, you have to find things when he turns his back. Dull that knife. Just hide his whip or destroy his whip. When he sleeps, the oppressor sleeps. And the whip that he uses to beat you, hide it, destroy it. You have to challenge his miseducation, challenge his rhetoric, challenge his narratives with your own narratives, your revolutionary education. You've got to find ways. He keeps you out of mainstream media. You create alternative media. That's undermining the government. There are new ways and new avenues of getting information and getting your views out. Laugh at him when his speech stumbles. Laugh at oppressor. Oppressors don't like you to laugh at them. If they want to make themselves fools, laugh at them. On the international stage, and they don't have the speech right, laugh them. That's undermining the government. As I've argued, I'm not I'm not an elitist. I can't be, even if I try. I'm a country boy, and I'm sensitive to people laughing you when you can't talk properly. Not promoting elitism. We all have our speech impediments. But when a bully president or the president of a bully government goes on the world stage and can't talk, that's a different kettle of fish. And you have to laugh at him. Doesn't like that at all. Expose the hidden racism. That means you yourself have to become illiterate about racism. You have to know what racism is. And if you know what racism is, you expose them. You expose them when they're engaging in racism. You know, there was a time when we used to believe that racism is when somebody call you the N word or somebody call you the C word or the B word. That's not racism. That's prejudice. That's prejudice. It's deep prejudice. But racism is when you take that prejudice and turn it into policy. When you take that prejudice and take it with you in government. When you take that prejudice and you put it in the school curriculum. When you take that prejudice and you police, you use it as a form of policing. That's racism. And now you know what racism is. You're able to expose it. Hide the oppressor mask when he falls asleep. The oppressor is bound to sleep. Take off your mask. I'm not talking about the COVID-19 mask. I'm talking about the mask that covers his brutality. You know, he puts on these masks of democracy and free and fair election and all. Those things are masks for what he is doing. The masks prevent you from seeing him. A democratic government doesn't, by definition, facilitates the murder of its citizens. So when we say you're murdering Black people, you're murdering opposition people, the answer of the oppressor is that that's a lie. Why is it a lie, Mr. Oppressor? Because I'm a Democrat, small d. I believe in democracy. And you can believe in democracy and still be a racist. You can believe in democracy and still facilitate the gunning down of poor people. So when we talk about undermining the government, that is what we're talking about. People get vexed with me when I say PPP are not fools. Mr. Jagdi is not a fool. I don't know her finale. They understand the potency of undermining because they themselves utilize the tool of undermining. They themselves. They got no party in Guyana that can undermine a government like the PPP. So when they hear us use the word undermine, they understand what we are saying. We are saying to people, resist in every way possible. Resist. You're working in a government office and you come across stuff that they're hiding, leak it, take it to the opposition. You see, I get into trouble. The other morning I was on Buxtonian Morning Time, and there were some fellas there who are ready for the revolution, and they're ready to go and block up Georgetown. And because I'm not calling on people to go and block up Georgetown and carry on, they say that I'm passive. I'm preaching a passive message. And the truth of the matter is, if someone shows me how to be passive, I wouldn't know how to do it. Passivity has never been my forte. I wouldn't know how to be passive if somebody teach me how. But nevertheless, people want you to preach blood and preach guns and preach all those things. I'm not into that. They're more potent weapons. The PPP wants us to preach blood and to preach violence. They want us to do that. And if you are a sensible political activist, you do not walk into the trap that is set for you by your opponents. And in any case, it's crazy to come up on these platforms, alternative platforms, because we are kicked out of the other platforms, and come up here and preach violence, and they close us down. That's stupid. For us to do it and for our supporters to goad us on to do it, you're wondering whether these people who are parading as our supporters are really our supporters, who are trying to push us to preach violence. You see, violence is determined by those who have ready access to the tools of violence. The army, police, the coercive arms of the state. Those are ready forms of violence. And the government has access to that kind of violence. What we, the people, have are our self-defenses. How do we defend ourselves against the violence of the state? And ultimately, when a society descends into political violence, it is not started by the people, it started by government. And people defend themselves. So when our friends want us to start talking about some violence and all that stuff, go out on the street and block up and so on, that's infantile. That's stupid. That's what they're waiting for us to do that. That is why, even though we are not doing it, they operate as though that's what we're doing. So while some of our so-called comrades are telling me that I am passive, the PPP is circulating videos with my call on people to undermine the government, with Mr., I think it's the congressman, they got a little piece of the congressman's speech in New York at that rally. So they put the congressman's speech, they put a little bit of my speech, and then they follow it up with the breakdown file, and they say, this is what happens. Seeking to make the linkage between what Congressman Jeffrey said and what I said with the fires. David Hinds caused the fire because he called on the people to undermine the government. Now, there are two things about that. One is to say David Hinds is preaching violence. But the second thing is the recognition that we are on to something when we ask you all to undermine the government. You see, when you say undermine, they don't know where you're coming from. They don't know what hour of the day, what day of the week, what method you're using. So they have to say, look, David Hinds is there and he's in your ears. Everywhere you move, he's telling you, go do this, go do that. I have not been in struggles for 40 odd years to make people trap me. I know the PPP understands undermining. They understand that very well. When they hear it from me, they know the effectiveness of that call. They're going to try to spin it to say, you know, he's causing violence. He's calling for violence. You know, Guyana is a place, if you say the PPP's action is going to lead to violence in Guyana, they then turn it around and say, you're promoting violence. So Mr. Jagdeo was on a long rant in an interview with the critic. I'm sorry we couldn't get some excerpts to play for you. He went after me for calling for undermining, cussed me out nasty. He said I'm missing the perks from government. I don't know what perks I used to get from the government, but Jagdeo thinks I used to get perks. He said the quarrels between the WPA and the PNC during the coalition time were contrived. We are all up to the same thing. We want to bring down their government. But I plead guilty. Of course I want to bring down yes, I want to bring down the PPP. PPP is not good for Guyana. The PPP is not governing in a fair way. They went after Aubrey Norton. They went after Rickford Burke, and perhaps the person that he focused most on was Cheryl Duncan. He went off a little on Mark Benchop. What do we all have in common? Take out Aubrey for the moment. What we all have in common is that we come here in the evenings or whenever we get an opportunity to, first of all, to bring you information, then to bring analysis of that information, and then to suggest alternatives. That is what we do here in the evening, is that we are mobilizing you. Some of our friends on our side said, what mobilizing? People should go out on the street. Oh, they should go. And I had to say on Kenaki's program the other morning, if you want to go on the street, you go. I am not encouraging Guyanese people, opposition supporters, to go on the streets without protection. It's suicidal. It's suicidal. The workers were out there the other day, they were under the protection of their union. And when the opposition parties feel that they're ready to go on the streets, they will mobilize their people. Outside of that, I am not asking people to go on the streets stupidly to be locked up and shot at when there are no defenses. People talk about 1997, 1998. People talk about 1997. Well, 1997, the PNC was there on the street. Aubrey Norton, who we're going to talk about, we'll talk to tomorrow. Aubrey Norton, Sherwood Lowe, McAllister, all those guys were mobilizing people and they were there on the street. Mr. White was on the streets out there. The people had defenses. They weren't 101. On any given day, there were 5, 6, 7, 10,000 people on the street. That's your defense. You have a trigger-happy government, and you want to tell 15, 20 people without leadership, without the cover of leadership, to go out there. That's nonsense. There's a lot that we can do in the meantime, and there's a lot that we are doing. The fact that Jagdio spends all that time, an hour and a half, or how much was the interview, identifying Sherrod and Mark and Rickford and myself, we must be doing something right. But some of our people think that we are being pacifists because we are not out there carrying on. There's a time and season for everything. There's a time you retreat and you size up your opponent and you watch them to come again. There's a time you seize the time and you push hard. I am never going to encourage people to go out there and kill themselves. I'm not doing that. What I will encourage you to do is undermine the government. And I don't have to tell you all how to do it. Sometimes you yourselves don't know. An opportunity will come for you to undermine them. If you cannot wreck the train right away, you slow down the train. I come from a train village. We didn't overthrow. Our foreparents did not overthrow the colonial government. What we did was stop the train and force the governor to come out and talk to our people. That's why they said boxing people stop train. In stopping the train, we signal to the world and we signal to the rest of history. Because 120 odd years later, we still talking about how boxing people stop train. That was a most revolutionary act. People think that the only way you can fight is with gun in your hand. And you have the state, which got more gun than you. So, Mr. Jagdio, since you fear the word undermine, I'm going to continue to use it. And since people pay for me to go to school and learn words, I'm going to find some other words that you don't like. Because you all want to do what you all are doing without us saying anything, without our people saying anything, without our people understanding what is going on. David Hinds and these chaps, they say they are black rights activists. Of course I'm a black rights activist. I'm black. I'm a black man. That's not all that I am. I'm a political activist, period. But you're saying David Hinds, they think they're black rights activists as though it's some crime. to be a Black rights activist. I am not allowing nobody to use Black rights as some weapon, some bad word to get me to stop speaking out on behalf of Black. The one thing I've always stressed is that I'm one Black rights activist, that if I see Black wrong, I'm going to speak out against it. And I have my track record. They don't talk about it. I don't mind standing up to people in my own race if I think they're wrong. I do that all the time. They tell me on Buckstone and Morning Time, I disagree with that times. Well, yes. I'm not here just to get your agreement. I don't go with the crowd just for the sake of going with the crowd. I think the attacks, for example, I think the attacks on Mahatma Gandhi are obscene. And I'm encouraging Black people to stay away from that. There are other things you can fight that project that they're talking about, renaming Murray Street or Middle Street after Gandhi. There are other ways we can fight that than to be talking about, Gandhi racist and Gandhi is homosexual and Gandhi this and Gandhi that. We are better as a people. We got more sense than that. Every time we open their mouth, our mouth, they call us racist. We getting into that same nonsense of saying, yes, Mahatma Gandhi, he was not Mahatma then. He was the Mahatma then. He went to South Africa and he took the side of the whites in the struggle against Blacks. He called Blacks kafirs and all of that stuff. He did that stuff. But he repented as he matured. That's the truth. He repented to the point where major Black leaders like Martin Luther King Jr. or only U.C. Kwayana were influenced by his teachings. The thing is that some of the Indians, or most of the Indian Guyanese, who are now talking about having a street named after Gandhi, they never followed Gandhi. A lot of Gandhi's followers were Black people. And so now, because this government wants to name street after Gandhi, we feel the only way we can fight it is by bad-mouthing Gandhi. No, bad-mouthing government. We always take our eyes off the prize. Now's not the time to fight Gandhi. Now's the time to fight these people who are not Gandhiites, but would like to use the occasion of naming a street after Gandhi to further shut us out. Gandhi had nothing to do with Guyana. Mandela had nothing to do with Guyana, and we have a street after Mandela. I mean, we got to get out of this small talk. I am opposed to naming the street after Gandhi. Not because Gandhi was a racist or whatever else they say he was, but because this government of Guyana has no right to use the emotions surrounding Gandhi to further Indianize Guyana. That's what they're doing. They want to use Gandhi to further Indianize the Guyanese landscape. They're not interested in honoring Gandhi. They're interested in using Gandhi in pursuit of their agenda. And their agenda is an agenda of Indian domination. And so I oppose naming the street after Gandhi on the grounds that going to use Gandhi to further dominate and Indianize the Guyanese landscape. We go to school. There's one black people, we get education, and we must use it. Don't let people get us into them talking about Gandhi being a racist and Gandhi being homosexual, and then the conversation becomes about Gandhi rather than about the government using Gandhi to dominate and Indianize the landscape. Come on, people, we've got to start using the top side. And I want to say to our talk show, my talk show brothers, you all got to take the responsibility in steering that conversation away from those nonsense. These people want to use Gandhi to further their agenda. And we are talking about Gandhi rather than talking about them. All we grew up in village. Even when we live in town, this village we live in. But for those of us, I see my partner Danette. Danette good night, girl. I see my partner Danette. When them lady all for views in them village, they can choose what abuse him about. They may get 5 views and they can abuse you about. But I think the one that they know go touch the spot. So I am not talking about no big education. I'm talking about culturally, you grow up in a community and you see how people operate in situations of conflict. I'm not going to read book. So you all stop with this Gandhi racist nonsense and so on. Let me tell you all a story. A few years ago, the South African government wanted to give Forbes Burnham an award for his contribution to the African liberation struggle. And some of the supporters of Walter Rodney in Africa and outside of Africa, quite rightly, decided they will oppose it. And the argument is that Burnham was a dictator in Guyana and then he should not be given the award. And some of us in the WPA argued, we said, look, yes, Burnham, played his role in Guyana. We fought him. We fought his dictatorship in Guyana. That is there. But he was a dictator at home, but he contributed tremendously to African liberation struggle. And we are not going to stand in the way of him getting an award. Burnham is not South African, but the South Africans were giving him an award for the role he played in African liberation. And we feel that whatever else he was, that should not deny him the award. Whatever else Gandhi was, he was a world-renowned political thinker. And he should not be standing in his way of getting a street name after him because he called Black people kafir and all of that stuff. Because we have people from our country who get who are rewarded in other country. And we don't want them to say, I'm not giving Burnham an award, I'm not giving Rodney an award, I'm not giving Kwayan an award. I'm not giving Hamilton Green an award because they're not from this country. It's a shallow and stupid argument. They're being awarded for their contribution to world civilization. And nobody can deny that Mahatma Gandhi contributed to world civilization, in spite of whatever else he was. I am opposed to the statue, the street naming after him, not because he's not deserving of it. It is because this government is using it for nefarious purposes. We always had a statue in the little gardens, promenade gardens of Gandhi. We have a bust of Gandhi's mentee, Jawaharlal Nehru, the first Prime Minister of independent India. There in opposite the Bank of Guyana. We have in there Tito, a communist leader of Yugoslavia, who many Yugoslavs thought was a beast, a dictator, a communist dictator. We were not honoring him for his communist dictatorship. We are honoring Tito and Nehru and Nkrumah for their contribution to the non-aligned movement. If this government were different, if this government intentions were better, I would not oppose naming a street after Gandhi. Even if we can say, well, Mill Street is an affront to our foreparents who died in that 1823 struggle, I would not oppose some other street. I'm opposing Gandhi's street naming after Gandhi at this time because I know what the government in office is going to use it for. I am never going to teach Black people or encourage Black people to be obscene when we have alternative to obscenity. We have a strong argument against that street being named after Mr. Gandhi. We have a strong argument. We don't have to go and be cussing down Gandhi. And then when the Indians tomorrow start cussing down Dr. King, and start cussing down Nkrumah, and start cussing down Malcolm X, then we get vexed. All those leaders had their faults. All of them made mistakes. Dr. King made his own mistakes in his personal life and his political life. But yet that must not and does not take away from his great contribution to world civilization. The great Marcus Garvey met with the Ku Klux Klan. Yes, Garvey did. He met with the Ku Klux Klan and he said to them, you don't like black people. You all want to separate from Black people. We don't like you all neither. You all separate and leave us alone. The other Black leaders like Du Bois and others didn't like the fact that a Black leader met with the Ku Klux Klan. It was, you know, that is one of the reasons that they may have cooperated with the American government to get him jailed and deposed. Not deposed, but sent back to Jamaica. All our leaders are fault. But you look to see what the leader has done in terms of world civilization. Some of my friends get vexed with me because they say I gone soft on Burnham. How can I say anything good about Burnham? After all, I fought Burnham. I was imprisoned under the Burnham regime. But that should not cloud my eyes to the positive contributions Burnham has made. We fought Burnham's authoritarianism. We fought Burnham's autocracy. We fought Burnham's one-man rule. That does not deny the fact that Burnham used the government in many regards to live for poor people. That does not erase his anti-imperialist foreign policy, his regional foreign policy vis-a-vis CARICOM, his foreign policy in relation to African liberation. We cannot always define people by the worst in them. There are times when we highlight the worst. But when we're looking at things in a panoramic view, we have to define people differently. I don't care. I am not going to be imprisoned by my past politics. I opposed Burnham, young man, little boy. I joined the WPA and we opposed Burnham. Yes, I will agree we have to weaken the Burnham government. That was necessary at the time. If I were to live again in that time and confronted with the same thing, I will do it again. Maybe do it differently. I'm sure we would have learned and we may have done it differently. But you can't want to tell me that I must be trapped by what I did 40 years ago. And so Burnham is dead and gone 36 years ago, and I must still be fighting Burnham. No, I'm not fighting him, I'm fighting you. I'm fighting you, PPP. I'm not fighting Burnham, I'm not fighting Jack, I'm fighting Jack Dio. Irfan Ali. And those 1-eye and 2-eye and 3-eye people you got around you, fighting you. One has to always look at the big picture. The human mind, humanity itself, is not a straightforward thing. We're dealing with complexity. Human beings are complex. And the world we create is a complex world. And you don't deal with complexity with a straight, dogmatic line. You deal with complexity with complexity. Today I can talk to Hamilton Green. When we were in the WPA's Hamilton Green, we didn't frighten Burnham that much. It's Hammy and Corbyn were the two men that we were afraid of, because those men were seen as the strong men in the PNC. And today, Robert and Hammy are people that I can talk to. What that means is that we have matured, we have grown. But why are you talking to Hammy? Well, Jesus Christ. Today, I can talk to Hamilton Green and Robert Corbyn, and it's a testament of how much we have matured politically. There are people on the PPP side that I talk to. Not the Jack Dio and them little by who and get manners. Although whenever I've met Jack Dio, we have had cordial conversations. But Jack does not me grow much, so I don't know he. But Ramatar and Gail and Roy and all of them, whenever we speak, we have cordial conversation. Whenever we meet, because we were fellow travelers together. That don't mean that if they behave bad, I would not say they behave bad. My struggle is not against the individual. My struggle is against the politics of the individual. Human relations are important. One of the reasons that Guyana is at the place that it is that our leaders have not formed long-lasting relations. So our individual mistrust is taken into politics and government. So let's do our politics different. Let us not descend. This PPP government will go at some point. But we have our dignity as a people to uphold, and we can't run around cussing up and carrying on when we got other ways. My auntie always used to tell me, as all our aunts and grandmothers would tell me, they can cuss. But when you cuss, they back you up on your mouth. You know why? Because they're sending you to school so that you can learn words so you don't have to cuss. That's what my auntie used to tell me. My auntie was a cuss board. But she made it very clear that you are going to school to learn so that you don't have to cuss like how I cussing. If the PPP want abuse off and carry on, let abuse off and carry on. We have other ways and other means of expressing ourselves when we're ready for abuse and cuss. When the time comes, we gonna cuss. Don't get me wrong, I'm not beyond abusing dog, and I'm not telling you all, when abuse meet you abuse back. But when you have alternative to abuse, use the alternative. There come a time when you have no choice than to lift up your dress or to pull down your pants and carry on. But that will be determined not by you. It will be determined by those whom you oppose, those in high places. Before I open up the line, let me deal with something that is troubling me. And again, some of you are not going to share my view on it. I read in the Village Voice this weekend that the family of Orrin Boston, apparently they were given some assurances by the government in exchange for them pleading with the people of Dartmouth to call off the demonstration. If you all notice, after 2 or 3 days, the demonstrations were gone. Apparently, the government gave some assurances to the family and asked them, and they then asked the people to cease the demonstration. According to the Village Voice News this weekend, the families now say they may have been lied to and misused. My words, right? By the government. They said that the Minister of Home Affairs left a number with them, ostensibly a private number. And when they're calling that number, they're getting no answer from the number. They assured the family that within a week or 2 weeks, charges would be made. That has not happened. And they apparently made some other promises to the family that they've not fulfilled. The family has now gone public. Read that story in the Village Voice, Sunday edition. Those of you who can get it on the stands in Guyana, please get it. Those of us who can't get it on the stands, go to the website, Village Voice, Guyana, Facebook or website page, and you'll see the story there. Where the family, the father in particular, has now publicly said that they may have been scammed by a scampish set of people. Now, I don't want you all to go off and start cussing the family. Who feels it knows it. It was their son. It was their father. It was their husband. And we have to give them some space. So don't go off cussing them. Oh, be this and be that. It's their child, their father, their uncle. And they made decisions from where they are. And whether those decisions turn out to be right or wrong, we have to stand with that family. And we always have to give the grieving family space to make decisions that are personal to them. When your son is killed, you're not thinking politics. Having said that, we have to learn. We have to learn that this government has absolutely no morality, none. So that even the people who are grieving, they will scam politically. This government has no intention, absolutely none, of obeying and respecting the rule of law. This government has absolutely no intention of giving not one victory to Black people. And this government confessed that the police was wrong, send that file to the DPP, charge those guys, hold them before the courts. As far as they're concerned, that's not justice. That's a victory for Black people and for the opposition parties. They will never do it. That's the beast we are dealing with. Again, you all hear me. I know, well, these ones that are in this government, I don't know them. I'm assuming that they're good men and good women. I only know Gail to share all the other ones that kick out. I know Gail. I know Gail is a good person. I disagree with her. I've disagreed with her now for years. But I know she's a good person. But we're not dealing there with the persons, we're dealing there with the government that those persons are part of. That good person, when he or she encounters power, then changes. When that person becomes part of the institution, we see their reaction as institutions. They are not going to give a single victory to us. You think they can call Karen Cummins and put her on the task force, but they will see that as a victory for us. I heard that they in New York saying that we are facing the crisis of the pandemic, and we are facing oil companies, and we have to come together as a country. They go to New York to say that Hinds Sight in Guyana because we are relentless in hammering them every day, hammering them on programs like these. We're not on the streets yet, but we are hammering on our people. We're on this street here on Facebook and other social media, Freedom Street. And because we're hammering them, you are hammering them. And their overseas people are going to begin to tell them, you got back down. So they go to New York and give us a little crack. Time to come together. But you know what we just say in the village? Me mind bad. Me mind bad. You stop talk to me, and when you're ready now for talk back, me mind bad. Me not talk. That's my initial response to them. Anyhow, let's get back to the Boston thing. No, we got to realize these people are not going to give us any victory. They're not going to give in to us on anything, and we cannot enter into agreements with them without the counsel of our leaders. Sometimes I know the family, and they have every right not to want politicians around. They're grieving. But we've got to learn that they will take advantage of that situation. They took advantage of that family. And what other families have to do is to learn that if that time arises, do not allow the PPP to make you getting into any deal. Such as calling, you see, protest. They knew that as that protest continued, it would have spread along the Essequibo coast and it would have spread to other parts of Guyana. Because they knew that we were not going to let that issue go. And so, whatever deal they made with the family, that's the first thing they did. And then when they left, the people calling the number, they not answer, they make those people fools. And oh, shame on them. Shame on Robson. You know you're not, you know it's like you meet a girl in a dance. And she dance up with you a little bit and you tell yourself you're in business. You ask for number. And she give you a whole number. Or them girls just give you a number to funeral parlor and all kind of thing. That's what they do to that family. Give the family a number that he's not going to answer. How low can you go, Robson? Brother Hinds, the time for talking is long gone. It's time to fight down Babylon more than chanting. Brother Morgan, you know chanting is fighting? You know chanting is fighting? We want us to do, Brother Morgan. You want us to pick up arms and go and square the revolution and tell them, come on, let's fight? What are you all asking for? You don't even understand. You all sometimes underestimate your own power. Your own power. Talk. Not all talk is cheap. And when you try to script the revolution bound to fail. Revolution must arise out of spontaneous activity of the people. And the leaders then take that spontaneity and refine it and give it back to the people. Because when we think we have the power to decide when to talk and when not to stop talk, that is what gets us in plenty trouble. We don't have that power. That power lies with the people who every day must wake up and face the rising sun and ask where the next bottle of milk will come from. And it's out of that comes the revolution. Bob Marley, one day started to head downtown and I saw John Brown. Every time I tried to plant a tree, he tried to cut it down. And as I was going downtown, I saw Sheriff Brown, and I assumed that he was going to shoot me down, and I shot him first. I shot the sheriff. I shot the sheriff. If I'm guilty, I will pay. Allow you all people to meet the point now. Why you all want to be trigger happy? Allow people to reach that point when they see their personal struggles tied up with the larger struggle, and then they will act and you all will be sleeping, you know. When the people decide to act, you all gonna be, you all been sleeping. Those of y'all who talking revolution for me. Revolution start. Are you just sleeping? Are you bed? No, go out and mobilize your people. Wherever you are, whether you're in Golden Grove, Anns Grove, wherever, go out and mobilize your people. Give 2 hours a day to the revolution. 2 hours a week to the revolution, sorry. You all into this thing, them trying to write a play on how they buy Buxton. And one of the characters was Gang, the old wise woman. There was always one of that on each plantation. And as they sit down and they're planning how to buy the village, Gang said, Picnic, bush guys, are you be careful? Bush guys, you all think they're not listening to us? You all think they're not studying us? That's why I say undermine, which means mine them underneath. Picnic bush got is. Now make nigga push at you. What she was doing is cautioning them. Cautioning them wisdom. Picnic bush guy is. Now make nigga push at your fire. And that is what you all want to do, push some of us a fire. And then when we get locked up or they kill, we all get a nice big family and raise your fist in the air, and that's that. Picnic bush guy is, now make nigga push at your fire. I don't mind militancy. I'm a militant. But militants are not stupid. There you go, Andrea. When you plant a seed, they say kill it before it grows. Quoting from the great. You have to, when people own their struggle, you know, when they reach that point where they say, no bullet can stop me now, I'm quoting Brother Bobby again. When people reach that point, it's easy. And they invest, they believe more in what they invest in. We want to reap the crop without tilling the soil and watering the plant. I make no apologies for having absolute confidence in people, having confidence in our supporters. It doesn't mean that I agree with everything, but ultimately I have confidence in them, that they will rise and cut the ground from under the feet of this regime. Under the feet of this regime. All right, we're going to open the phone lines now and take some calls from you. Tomorrow, of course, is the town hall meeting with Aubrey Norton. I'll talk about that a little on the other side of this break.
Can Aubrey Norton reunite the PNC and rescue Ghana from the PPP's destruction?
The direct answer to that is, once the Congress of the People's National Congress reform is called, I intend to run for the leadership of the party, but to serve the party.
Join us on Tuesday on CAMS TV, 6:30 in the evening for Politics 101, a Zoom town hall style meeting with Aubrey Norton and Dr. David Hinds. Yes, contact us on 622-5933 for your special place in the Zoom room. Can Aubrey Norton do it? Join us on Tuesday, 6:30, Politics 101 town hall style meeting on CAMS TV, Facebook Live, and get your answers. Aubrey Norton, his vision and his time.
Thank you. Yes, Aubrey Norton is going to be here tomorrow. Registration is going. I think there's a limit of 300 people we can get into the room. There is an advertisement, a written advertisement with the link that you can go to register. That's not the one I'm talking about. Yeah, with a link to register. So if you can go and register there, it's not easy. You just have to go to the link, put in your name, your email and your address so that we can send the Zoom information to you sometime tomorrow, so you can join us in the Zoom room. And once you come into that room, some of you will get to ask questions directly. Those who cannot get their questions directly, the moderator will ask some of the questions for you. But once you get into the room, you stand a chance of getting your questions directed to Aubrey Norton. And we'll try to get some of your written questions answered by Mr. Norton. So 6:30, we're gonna go for 2 hours to give enough time to get enough questions in to Mr. Norton. And as I've said, this is not a Norton campaign event. It is not a Norton campaign event. It's It's a Politics 101 event. And as we go along, we'll make a decision. That's what the form look like. Once you click, the form is there. Those of you, some people have contacted me, and I've steered them there. Those of you who have contributed, you get an automatic, meaning those of you of over the months contributed to Politics 101 will automatically get in to the Zoom room as contributors. You all are part owners of Politics 101. So whenever we have events like this, you get to automatically get in. All right. So let's open the phone lines and talk a little bit. If you have any views, any perspectives on some of the issues I have raised tonight, 604-9722, 604-9722. Those of you who have not registered yet, please, as soon as the show is over, go register and ensure your space in the Zoom room for tomorrow's town hall style meeting. There are calls that other candidates we should hold similar meetings. I will mull that and make a decision. As I said, it's not a Norton event. It's a Politics 101 event. So we'll see as we go along what happens. I'm toying with the idea of probably a debate if there are enough candidates. But we'll see. We'll see. No promises yet. We have a caller. Caller, you're on the air.
Good night, Dr. Hinds, and good night to the moderator. I'd like to touch on a few points that you brought out tonight. Now you were talking, I think, about this renaming of the street or whatever the name they want to give it to. If we should look, this is what the PPP does. Now, Timeri International Airport, I think it was named Atkins Airstrip. I don't know, but I think that it was. And Barnum to let the Amerindians get a name, get something that you're showing that Amerindians are here and is a part of Guyana. He named the airport Timeri. Was given the name Mashramani, meaning celebration after hard work, which is indeed to the fact. Because independence 1966 May, and then we moved to Republican state 4 years after being an independent country. Anyway, so Mashramani. Barnum places that nobody had. Roxon, Barnum Garden, there was a place that hadn't a name. He gave that. Then he went up the East Coast, Melanie Damishana, after one of his children. Now, when the PPP came in, they removed the Mary International. In Pradoville and name it by give it to Gandhi. Anyway, the next point is with the Boston. He said don't add salt into the rooms. But I think I may be adding salt. Remember the Henry boys. I looked at the tape when the fraudulent installed president went to the funeral parlor. That early Mr. Harmon and them stood aside to allow to go and visit. And that is what I would not have done. I didn't concern who they come in. If that is me there, I look in the state. If you could get the tape, he approached one of the boy's father. I think one of the fathers were there. And when he was finished speaking, the installed president finished speaking with my father, I saw it on tape, and the picture tell 1,000 words according to Wolflit. So when Mr. Harmon called out to the father, this father took a back step at the funeral. He didn't come into front. That even after when they were ready to close up those caskets and move those children from the parlor to the home in Barbies, this father took a back step. And I don't want people to bash me. And I believe after the and spoke with the father, they changing him out and saying something like, you can't think for the boys, them and them could tell you one thing and all kind of thing. Then they said they're going to look after it. And when the took a step back, like what the Dartmouthians has done, you see what happened? This is what going on, and what people got to understand, that with this government, you don't accept what they say. And as long as Guyanese will sit down and allow when they got the installed regime to come and tell them something, it's going to be like what happened to the Henry boys and now Boston. That is my thing. And when you see these people come, they come to them and they offer them some kind of money under the table. And they just say, oh, well, you know, I think, and that's what they're doing with them. You gotta get sense. If you're in a war is not only shooting. You got to sit down and study your opponent. And how long Guyanese black people don't study the PPP as a warrior, you hold them as they are, they will always run away and get away with whatever they're doing, because the black people are just staying back, and as you got to come and the bull, which you roll over the ice and you accept them for who they are. They are wolves in sheep clothing, and how long we don't understand they are wolves, we will always end up at the point where those and then now they realize that they have nothing to hold on to, not even straw. That is my thought. I don't know if I could come on tomorrow because I didn't get in on the show, but I really wanted to come on tomorrow. Anyway, that is my little input to the program tonight. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Okay, there we have the perspective of one caller. As I said, please don't beat up on the family. There is a way in which we can discuss this without beating up on our people. Our people get enough beating up from the opponents, from the enemies, and we have to be very careful that we don't beat up on ourselves too much, you know? We have to find a way to be self-critical without beating ourselves up. As I said, people who lose loved ones must be given space to make decisions that they think are in the interest of the family. And I think that is all that the family did here. As it turned out, it was not in the interest of the family or the community, and we've got to roll on. We can't be cussing down one another and abusing one another because we make mistakes. We can't. We have to stop it. So the phone lines are open while the caller was making our point. or points. Many people were trying to get on, and now she's off and the lines are silent. It happens like that, right? Tomorrow night, I hope we have a very good meeting and that we press Mr. Norton on issues that are important to us as a community, as a country, and try as much as possible to use the time as effective as we can. We will send out the Zoom information in the course of tomorrow so that you can be ready at 6:30. On Thursday, we are going to have Winston Jordan on to talk about the economy. Lots to talk about there.
We have a caller.
Caller, go ahead.
Yes, a blessed good night, my brother. I've been listening to you quite long. And tonight, moreover, I am quite convinced with your conversation. I need to applaud because personally, all that you have said has made sense. But at the same time, it's for the African brothers to be united. It is bothering me because I saw on Facebook a story emanating from the camp of the PNC. I don't know if it is fake news, if it is fact news. But from that which I saw, it is mind-boggling. If it is facts. Anyhow, I, as a patriotic guy all my life, I am saying that it is time for those within the ambit of the PNC to let Congress make decisions and not the individuals who do not have the interest of the masses to make decisions. Because that is what has been happening for quite some time. And the majority of Guyanese are disgruntled over that. And it is time, I don't want to call names, but those in the higher echeloncy of the PNC to sit back and allow Congress to make decisions, fair, honest, transparent decisions. Because it's been too long that individuals were being selected against the will of the Congress. I think, as a patriotic Guyanese, I would love to see the will of the people being accepted, and those who are not leaders to step aside and let us have leaders for the betterment of all Guyanese. Because right now, Guyana is in chaos. Guyana is being destroyed. And for the generations to come, we must sacrifice Guyana for Guyanese and stop looking at personal aggrandizement. Anyhow, you have a blessed evening, and I appreciate all you said tonight. Bye.
Thank you very much. And, some of those questions, I saw the story that the caller mentioned. I've not repeated it on this program because I don't know whether it's true or not, and I don't want to sow any confusion. Aubrey's going to be here tomorrow night, and we'll get to ask him that question, whether there is any truth to the story that has been circulating or not. Like I said, I have not repeated it because I don't know whether it is true, and I don't want to contribute towards confusion in the community. So we'll wait until Mr. Norton gets here tomorrow, and we'll ask him to respond to that question. Thank you, caller, for your sentiments. And I do share them. We need unity, we need leadership, and we need tenacity without stupidity. It's program time. In fact,
we have a call up, Doctor.
Okay, we'll take this call.
Hi, good evening, Dr. Hinds.
Good night.
Hello?
Good night.
Yes, I understand everything that what you were trying to say to us as Guyanese. What you're saying here is political awareness, political maturity. We have to understand the frustration with the people there in Guyana because of our political culture or maturity. We are not there as yet. We always, most of the time, and most of the Guyanese, we always rely on political leadership. We want something to be done that could be handled personally by us. We will run to our political leader or to our minister. And in turn, the minister will have it done. Instead of after have it done, so that this here, you could have handled it yourself. It wasn't that kind of technical or, that required a political intervention. So you must try it at some time and everything to bring to the political leaders. No, they wouldn't say that. They will do it because they themselves are looking for vote and support. So we got to understand this tangle web. That is in Guyana by itself. Not that right because of the last election. So people are getting frustrated. They're not seeing what they're being taught, so to speak. So you will hear all sort of things coming up from them, because of the frustration that is taking place there, the blows that they're reaching with, because they're not that politically mature to understand their position. Now, look at what is going on. Now, even if the people say, well, all right, you know what? Let us go along with this mature, this kind of way that we should as a people. Look what is going on at GCOM. You think there's any hope? The election call tomorrow, we will have a fair and free election or anything different from March the 2nd, 2020? I don't think so. You're not even hearing anything from the political side that will listen to me. What is going on here doesn't make sense, and give some sort of assurance like what Mr. Jordan did here the other day, whereby putting the PPP on notice or putting Jagdeo on notice that money that he intends to give to his supporters, you will end up your tail into the court. These are the assurances that the people want to hear, at least. And we're not getting that. That is not forthcoming, particularly in these important areas. I want to know when all these important political spaces being occupied. What Mr. Norton, if he is being selected as the leader, what will he do? I would like to hear that. I would like to hear if GCOM replace those people that they have before the court that has been suffering, that has been beaten to twine for one allegation. You understand me? They've been thrown off the job because departmentally there's some evidence there unknowing to the court. The court can't get it as yet, but GCOM departmentally they could have gotten it to justify firing these people. You understand me? So all of these things, and you're hearing nothing from the opposition if they will accept this or they would not accept what Chico is doing. You understand? So all of that frustration is we have to understand where the people are coming from. As Mr. What's his name, Jeffrey Henry said the other night. Plain and blunt that we're heading into violence or a step to separate states.
Yeah.
You know, so that is a little contribution here for this evening, Mr. Hinds. We have to get a little patience with the people. We are not matured enough politically, and who they're depending on, they're not forthcoming in some important areas. That is damping the spirit more of the citizens. You know, so that is my little take. Thank you. Listening.
And unless there is a caller who is here, we'll have to call it a night because people have to go. They have other shows to go to. I want to end tonight expressing my condolences to two friends of mine who have recently passed. Cheryl Telford Blair from Buxton, the Telfords at Buxton Front. Most of you from the rest of Guyana will know Mosa Telford. It's Mosa Telford's aunt, a very prominent family of both her father and mother were educators, and she passed away in England. My condolences to the family. Was had to deal with a lot of transitions over the last few years. And then to the family of my very good friend, Gloria Thomas. Many of you would have read the story in the newspaper of the woman who went to court there at Vigilance Police Station and collapsed and died. A childhood friend, one of my supporters, and when I wasn't well known, you know, I would look forward to every time I meet her, and she say "Kowalism," because we used to sing a song when we were young and doing our thing in Buxton, Kowaliza, 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 Mama Kowaliza. It's a South African song that means the police are coming. The police are coming. And Gloria Thomas and a set of the young girls would follow us around the village when we would be doing poetry and singing songs. And she gave me her own name, Kowalism, Kowalism. I'm saddened. You know, I remember a few weeks ago while I was in Guyana, emancipation, we chatted as usual and so on, not knowing that was the last time that I was going to be talking with Gloria. I think she was out on one of the demonstrations there in Buxton. Yes, she was. Never miss the action. Rest in peace, my sister. But it's too much, too many deaths, but we shall survive. So Martin Carter said, death must not find us thinking that we die. Farewell, my sisters.
Can Aubrey Norton reunite the PNC and rescue Guyana from the PPP's destruction?
The direct answer to that is, once the Congress of the People's National Congress reform is called, I intend to run for the leadership of the party, but to serve the party.
Join us on Tuesday on CAMS TV, 6:30 in the evening for Politics 101, a Zoom town hall style meeting with Aubrey Norton and Dr. David Hinds. Yes, contact us on 622-5933 for your special place in the Zoom room. Can Aubrey Norton do it? Join us on Tuesday, 6:30, Politics 101 town hall style meeting on CAMS TV, Facebook Live, and get your answers. Aubrey Norton, his vision and his time.